Hey dreamers, tonight I'd like you to imagine waking up in the back corner of a lantern lit alley, just as a thin mist curls off the rooftops and a rooster gives a half hearted, groggy crow. Like even he's not convinced morning is worth it. You're lying on something uneven, a stack of folded straw mats, perhaps, or yesterday's laundry that never quite made it inside. The air smells like yesterday's fish market layered over today's wood smoke, and there's an odd tang of soap, or something pretending to be soap. You sit up slowly, brushing a moth off your sleeve, and notice that your kimono, wait, is this your kimono? Is damp in all the wrong places. Congratulations! You've either time traveled or joined a very method based historical walking tour. Either way, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from a sleepless patch of earth, let me know your location and what's keeping your eyes wide at 2 a.m. Overthinking, heartburn, existential dread. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The alley is narrow enough that if you stretch your arms, you could touch both walls. Someone's strung a laundry line just above head height, and a line of socks, tiny, toe separated, and suspiciously crispy, drip in the half light. As you trudge toward the street's mouth, your feet brush over soft gravel, some of it warm from the kitchen fires still burning indoors. There's a faraway rumble, like a merchant cart rolling over wooden slats, and then voices. You peer around the corner and see them. Two women bent over a wide basin outside a noodle shop, their sleeves tied back, scrubbing furiously. Steam rises from the bucket like a genie who's given up on granting wishes. They stop mid-motion to stare at you. One raises an eyebrow, the other flicks her cloth and gestures. You're expected. You shuffle closer, still trying to piece together your role here. Maybe you're an apprentice, a relative on the run, a ghost with good hygiene habits. No one seems interested in clarifying. Nearby, a pile of firewood crackles under a small iron kettle. One woman, the taller one, grabs a ladle and pours warm water into the basin, murmuring something about the delicate balance between heat and patience. The other just grunts. You watch them for a while, elbows deep in sleeves and collars and something that looks suspiciously like ceremonial undergarments. A dog trots past, ignoring you completely, tail high and judgmental. One of the women finally speaks. You're late? Her voice is low and rasped, as if it's been steeped in tea leaves and smoke. She gestures toward a pile of cloths waiting nearby, already sorted by color and attitude. Start with the whites, she says, but don't get cocky. They remember. You reach for a sleeve and dip it into the warm water. It's thicker than expected, more like washing with oatmeal. The sensation is soothing, hypnotic. A moment later, you're scrubbing rhythmically, matching their pace, breathing in steam and starch. It's oddly peaceful, like folding yourself into the rhythm of another century. The sky starts to pale at the edges, and the alley takes on that soft pre-dawn glow. A few more residents shuffle out with their wash, an old man with a bundle of rice paper shirts, a child carrying socks the size of dumplings. The communal feel is strong here. Everyone knows where their sleeves end and someone else's begins. A cat perches on a fence post, judging your technique. Someone sneezes. The washerwoman next to you mutters something about the spirits of neglected linens. You decide not to ask. As your hands move through the motions, soak, scrub, rinse, repeat, you start to feel something strange, familiar, like muscle memory you never earned. You belong here, in this moment, however fleeting. One mainstream historical fact. Edo period Japan had elaborate communal laundry stations, often centered near rivers or large wells where neighbors, especially women, gathered not just to wash but to share stories, news, and yes, a little gossip. One quirky or fringe detail. Some Edo era laundry workers believed that singing to the garments, especially children's kimono, helped ward off illness or misfortune. A few soft, off key lullabies echo from the alley's end. You try humming one. Your sleeve does not object. Historians still argue whether these communal washing areas were truly egalitarian or subtly segregated by class and status. But for now, you're part of the fold. Your knuckles are wrinkled, your elbows ache. Someone offers you tea in a chipped porcelain cup. You sip it carefully, watching steam curl into the slowly brightening sky. You're not sure what you were doing before this moment, but you're starting to think it wasn't nearly as clean. A sudden gust of wind flaps the drying line like a startled bird, and one of the socks from earlier takes flight, spiraling lazily into a puddle. You blink at it, then look around, as if someone else might retrieve it. No one moves. The older washerwoman raises her chin toward a narrow footpath that winds behind the noodle shop. Time to learn where the real washing gets done, she says, already gathering her bundles. You follow her past the bubbling kettle and into a shaded corridor, lined with mossy stone. It feels cooler here, and quieter, the soft hush of morning settling into its bones. The woman doesn't speak much. You get the sense she's saving her voice for something more important than you, like arguing with crows or warning spirits off her laundry line. The footpath opens into a riverside clearing where several women are already hard at work. These aren't the alley washers, no. Their robes are neater, their sleeves folded with geometric precision. They move like dancers. Dunk, scrub, lift, wring. Each motion has a beginning and end. No fuss in between. A worn plank sign hangs nearby, etched with characters that you squint to read. Cleanliness is a prayer in motion. Or maybe, don't drop your socks in the sacred stream. You're rusty on your Edo period calligraphy. Here, laundry isn't just a chore, it's a ceremony. Flat river rocks serve as scrubbing platforms. Wooden washboards are carved with tiny symbols, fish, cranes, clouds, as if trying to charm the stains away. Baskets are woven from straw and bark, their bottoms lined with a paste of crushed chestnuts and ash to absorb excess dye. One woman taps her basin twice, and someone else hands her a chunk of something beige and crumbly. You lean closer and realize it's not soap at all, just powdered rice bran mixed with ash and a little camellia oil. A handful of this mixture stirred into water becomes a milky solution that smells faintly of warm tea and something ancient. She presses the cloth into it gently, coaxing suds like secrets from the weave. The mainstream fact arrives in a whisper. Soap in Edo period Japan was largely absent from everyday use. What we think of as soap, lye-based, frothy, satisfying, was reserved for the wealthy or imported. Common folk relied on combinations of ash, natural oils, and fermented plant matter. Fringe detail: there was a rumor that adding a sliver of dried persimmon skin to the wash would keep away mildew and bad dreams. You notice one tied to a basket, dried and dangling, like a protective charm. You're offered a paddle, flat and smooth, made of bamboo, and shown how to press the cloth firmly without damaging its threads. It's all about pressure and release, like giving the garment a polite massage. A woman to your left murmurs a lullaby as she works, but it's not for children. It's for the robe itself, to soothe the fabric into forgetting its burdens. You try humming along. Your paddle slaps the cloth in awkward syncopation. The woman gives you a look. You stop humming. Across the clearing, a young girl dips a pair of tubby socks, frowns, then scrubs furiously with the corner of her sash. The older women smile. Everyone has their own rituals. Historians still argue whether the riverside stations were spaces of empowerment or quiet submission. Someone mumbles, like reciting from a textbook buried deep in the collective dream. You dip your paddle into the sudsy mixture and catch your reflection in the water. You look tired, gentle, like someone who's remembered something important. Your sleeves are rolled to the elbow. A splash of camellia oil freckles your hand. You rub it in. It's good for the skin, supposedly. Nearby, a dog scratches itself against a tree and then lies down in a patch of sun, watching the laundry workers with the solemn patience of a monk. A fish jumps in the river, startled by a breeze or maybe a terrible paddling technique. It's hard to say. Time moves strangely here. The sun is just beginning to peek over the tiled rooftops of the distant town, but you've already scrubbed 6 sleeves and a pair of obi that may or may not have belonged to a samurai. You find yourself wondering who wore them, what they did, whether they worried about foot odor. A basket tips over. The river catches a corner of fabric and tugs. One of the women dives for it, not with urgency, but with the weary swiftness of someone who's seen too many silk sashes escape into the current. You breathe deeply, the scent of rice bran and wet cotton grounding you. Your hands ache, but in a pleasant way, like they've been used for something necessary. You glance at your own sleeves again. They're cleaner now, straight, a little smug, if you're honest. Maybe they remember more than you do. Another gust rustles through the trees, scattering soap flakes like cherry blossoms. The washerwoman taps your shoulder. You learn fast. she says, then smirks. But you still fold like a drunk eel. You thank her, bowing low, the way you're starting to understand people do when they mean it. Your day, or maybe your dream, continues down the next winding path, past hanging cloth, simmering kettles, and quiet eyes. You trail behind the washerwoman, who now carries a sloshing wooden bucket in one hand and a mysterious bundle in the other, wrapped in cloth so fine it almost shimmers in the dawn. The path narrows, curling through reeds and past a squat shrine dedicated to the patron spirit of, well, given the offerings of clothespins and doll-sized tabby socks, you assume laundry. She turns sharply and ducks into a small structure set low in the earth, half hidden behind a cluster of bamboo. Inside it's cool and still, lit only by the gold spill of sunrise through slatted walls. In the corner, beside a collection of neatly arranged brushes, sits a box of something beige and gloppy. It looks like an unfortunate pudding. This, apparently, is the good stuff. She lifts the lid and scoops out a generous dollop of the substance, which sticks to her fingers like sticky rice. Not soap, she says, deadpan. Better. You peer closer. The smell is earthy, nutty almost. There's something floral beneath it. She smears a little onto the palm of your hand, and it spreads like silk-infused porridge. This is the fabled nuka, a washing paste made from rice bran, ashes, and sometimes soy husk, used across Edo for cleaning everything from hands to the inner linings of prized kimono. You try rubbing it between your palms and discover that it lathers just slightly, enough to feel useful without giving you modern bubble satisfaction. You resist the urge to ask where the loofah is. Mainstream historical fact. Soap as we know it wasn't widely available in Japan until well into the Meiji period. Most Edo residents used rice bran, nuka, or even grated daikon radish to clean themselves and their clothing. Gentle, natural alternatives that got the job done without stripping fibers or skin. The woman plops a bundle of clothing in front of you, fine, layered garments clearly belonging to someone of ridiculous status. Each piece is embroidered, dyed with care, and possibly woven with silkworm tears. You are now responsible for not ruining them. You begin applying the nuka paste gently to the innermost layer, working it into the seams with a small horsehair brush. The motion is soft and rhythmic. You fall into a trance, only broken by the soft muttering of your teacher, who appears to be negotiating with a stubborn wine stain. Fringe detail. In some quarters of Edo, certain families believed that mixing crushed pearl powder into their laundry paste could imbue their garments with moon softness. The price. Roughly 3 weeks' wages per wash. You spot a tiny vial on the shelf nearby. Pearl dust. Your fingers itch. You leave it alone. As you scrub, the woman watches you like a hawk who's seen too many silk tragedies. You do your best. The inner robe softens under your touch, and you notice faint floral designs hidden in the folds. Camellias, maybe? Or some Edo-era flower that no longer exists outside dreams. Historians still argue whether the preference for nuka was rooted in practicality or cultural resistance to foreign lye-based soaps. She mutters. But what matters is that it doesn't ruin the soul of the cloth. You nod solemnly, hoping your soul passes inspection. She moves to another corner and begins preparing starch, boiling rice water until it thickens into a glistening gel. You learn that this is not just for stiffness, but for structure. Edo garments weren't meant to flow. They stood, they presented, they announced. You give it a try, brushing the mixture along the edge of a collar. It hardens almost immediately, forming a crisp fold sharp enough to impress any visiting daimyo. In the background, a faint tune rises. Another washer somewhere humming to herself. You pick up the rhythm, your hands moving to its sleepy beat. Outside, the day is properly beginning. The city murmurs with early footsteps, rattling carts, and the distant clatter of shutters opening. But inside this room, time holds its breath. You are not a guest. You are a participant, a temporary apprentice in the ancient, slightly soggy art of Edo laundering. The woman lifts a final robe from the basin, wrings it with surprising strength, and lays it flat on a long, heated stone slab. She beckons you closer. Watch the steam, she says. It tells you when the fabric is ready. You do? It rises in slow curls, then suddenly thins, like a sigh of relief. You place your hand an inch above the fabric and feel the heat soften. She nods. You lift the robe carefully, folding it with a practiced reverence. You almost smile. Almost. Then she points to the gloppy bucket and says, "Now, do the rest." Your arms ache, your back sings a ballad of complaint. You've been elbow deep in rice bran paste, starch, and steamy indignation for what feels like a full season. Yet, the work isn't done. The washerwoman gestures to a bundle in the corner, this one tied in rich crimson cord, embroidered with gold thread so fine you hesitate to even breathe near it. She narrows her eyes. "A noble's laundry," she says, in the same tone someone might use for volatile explosives. You shuffle closer, careful not to scuff the tatami mat. The bundle is warm, freshly worn, and emits a faint aroma of sandalwood, fermented plums, and something like ego. You untie it reverently and find layers upon layers, inner robes, an under kimono, a sash longer than your personal regrets. Everything's impeccably folded and absolutely filthy. There's a collar ringed with salt from sweat, a sleeve stained with gravy? You hope it's gravy. And beneath it all, a pair of stiff ceremonial hakama that could probably walk out of the room on their own. This, clearly, is where the starch comes in. You haul the items out one by one, inspecting for damage or hidden poetry. The washerwoman doesn't help. She simply hands you a steaming bowl of white goop, the starch, and a brush made from wild boar bristles. "Even coats must kneel before the fold," she murmurs. You blink. You nod. You get to work. Mainstream fact. Starching garments in Edo period Japan wasn't just about crisp lines, it was also a sign of refinement, discipline, and domestic diligence. The higher one's status, the stiffer one's clothing. A nobleman's sleeves were expected to maintain posture even if he couldn't. You dip the brush into the starch and begin smoothing it along the fabric, working outward from the seams. It's oddly satisfying, like sculpting fabric into architectural form. As you press the folds into place, they begin to hold, sturdy, proud, like little paper walls. Quirky fringe detail. In some elite households, garments were deliberately overstarched to prevent hugs from lower class admirers. It was the literal embodiment of personal space. You press one sleeve and chuckle quietly. This noble's outfit could repel affection from 3 blocks away. Historians still argue whether excessive starching in samurai wardrobes was a matter of appearance or a passive-aggressive statement. The washerwoman adds, casually sipping tea as you sweat over a pleat. Some say it made them look imposing. Others say it was just to intimidate laundresses. You accidentally starch your own sleeve. It stiffens immediately, standing at an odd, accusatory angle. You leave it. Maybe you'll start a trend. The robe's inner lining is silk, delicate, embroidered with tiny carp swimming upstream. You handle it like a precious secret, brushing away stray fibers and smoothing out wrinkles with your palms. As you lift the final garment, a thin envelope falls out. You freeze. The washerwoman lifts a single eyebrow. You both know you're not supposed to open it. Naturally, you open it. Inside, a pressed leaf, a line of haiku about longing, and a smear of perfume. You blink. It smells like the river at dusk. The washerwoman clicks her tongue. Lords and their laundry, she mutters. More drama than a kabuki play. You refold the garments with as much reverence as you can muster, hiding the envelope back in its fold. Who knows how many secrets have been whispered into seams, how many arguments stiffened into collars, or how many love poems dissolved in rinse water. Outside, cicadas begin their soft percussion. The sunlight filters through slats, casting lines across the room, like shadows of folded sleeves. The washerwoman begins laying out the nobleman's garments on a lacquered rack. Each piece drips quietly, releasing the memory of its owner in slow, aromatic notes. You step back, surveying your work. The folds are crisp. The starch is even. The inner linings are unmarred. The secrets remain folded inside. You'd almost forgotten your own clothes. You glance down. Your sleeves are still slightly damp. Your hem smells faintly of camellia and steamed regret. But you're cleaner than when you arrived, and maybe, just maybe, better folded. Time for the performance, the washerwoman says, opening the screen door and gesturing toward the next courtyard. Her tone is mischievous. They do things a little differently over there. You hesitate for a heartbeat, then follow. Your sleeve creaks as you walk. The courtyard you're ushered into feels like a stage set moments before a performance. There's a low platform at the far end, flanked by two flagstones carved with chrysanthemum patterns, and the whole area smells faintly of jasmine, old soap, and anticipation. A crowd is gathering, but they aren't here to watch, not really. They're here to work in a style that looks alarmingly theatrical. Five women dressed in matching indigo work robes step forward in near unison. Each one carries a bundle of laundry under one arm and a paddle or washboard in the other, their feet moving in practiced synchronicity. There's no announcement, no drum beat, just a sudden, sharp whack as one of them slaps a wet sleeve against the stone. It echoes. Another joins in. Slap, ring, flick, fold. Then a third. Soon it's a chorus of cloth and motion, a kind of symphonic scrubbing. The garments snap like banners, sleeves fly like startled birds. You watch, spellbound, as suds fly into the air and land in gentle arcs across the stone. Your guide leans in and murmurs, "Theatre District Laundry Troupe. They're faster than most temples are at reincarnating." You find yourself standing on the edge, a freshly laundered sash in your hand, uncertain if it's a prop or an invitation. A woman waves you forward, beckoning you into the rhythm. You step in. The stone underfoot is warm. Someone hands you a basin already filled with warm water and a wooden paddle shaped like a fish. The rhythm starts again. Slap, ring, twist, fold, slap. You try to follow along. Your first slap lands weakly. The second sends water into your face. The third, though, finds a groove. You breathe, you move. You become part of the laundry ballet. Mainstream historical fact. Laundry in Edo wasn't always a quiet background task. In the entertainment districts, laundresses who catered to actors and performers developed flamboyant, efficient techniques, blending speed with stylized gestures, both to serve their clientele and, in some cases, to attract more of them. A puddle nearby ripples as one laundress performs a full spin before wringing a long scarf. Another tosses a folded obi into a basket with such grace that it lands like a folded crane. You are deeply out of your depth, but no one seems to mind. They're too busy being magnificent. Fringe detail. A few of these laundresses had personal followings, fans who believed their folding technique could influence the outcome of kabuki performances. One woman was so revered that actors allegedly fought over who would get her blessing fold before opening night. The slap of wet cloth continues around you, a kind of meditative percussion. You begin to match their pace, or at least fake it convincingly. Your paddle strikes the stone with a satisfying thunk. You wring the cloth over your knee like you've done this in 5 past lives. Then, someone sings. It's soft, lilting, a half-hummed folk song that ripples through the courtyard like a breeze through silk. One by one, others join in. The lyrics are simple, something about sleeves in the wind, hearts too heavy to dry, but the harmony is soothing and oddly catchy. You hum along. A small audience has gathered at the gate. Children, shopkeepers, an old man with a toothpick who nods in approval every time a perfect fold is achieved. You start to feel pride in your work. Even the washerwoman from earlier watches from the shadows, arms crossed, a ghost of a smirk tugging at her lips. One woman tosses you a towel with a theatrical flair. You catch it barely and bow. The audience claps. You blush. You were just here for a gentle rinse, and now you're part of an off Broadway sock opera. Historians still argue whether these laundresses truly saw themselves as performers or simply embraced the dramatic flair of their clientele. Someone behind you murmurs, probably the same omniscient laundry historian voice from earlier. You wring the last cloth with care and lay it on the drying rack, perfectly centered. For a moment, everything is quiet. Then a breeze picks up. Garments flap gently on the line. A single sleeve lifts and dances in the wind like it's taking a bow. Someone hands you a cup of barley tea. You sip, watching the drying clothes sway like applause. You've earned your intermission. The sun has lifted itself fully into the sky now, casting soft, peach-tinted shadows across the alleyways as you wander beyond the performance courtyard. The tea was warm, the praise was understated, and your sleeve has finally dried, though it still crackles a bit with residual starch, like a proud old flag. You follow a narrow canal deeper into the town where rooftops are tiled like overlapping fans, and a low hum of chatter rolls over the stones like lazy fog. A merchant passes you on a cart loaded high with bales of cotton, pausing only to adjust a comb in his topknot. He whistles a tune that sounds suspiciously like the laundry song you heard earlier. You're about to move on when a peculiar scent stops you mid-step. Something flowery, rich, and unmistakably deliberate. You tilt your head. It's not incense. It's not the tang of soap. It's laundry. You follow the scent like a bloodhound in sandals, rounding a quiet corner and stumbling upon a curious scene. A slender man in silk robes crouched beside a rack of garments, each hanging perfectly spaced. He's holding a long bamboo comb and spritzing the garments with some sort of perfumed mist. His expression is serious, reverent even. He doesn't look up when you approach, just says, "Keep your voice low." The robes are listening. Of course they are. You stand silently as he continues his ritual, flicking the comb once through the air before tucking it into his belt. "Merchant's robes," he finally murmurs, gesturing to the line. "Each one wears a different scent. You must never confuse them." Mainstream historical fact. Wealthy merchants in Edo, Japan often perfumed their garments, particularly under kimono and sashes with unique scent blends. These subtle fragrances functioned like a calling card or brand. Since merchants were often restricted in the colors and luxuries they could publicly display. Fringe detail. Some merchants went so far as to train their robes to retain scent over time by layering aromatic treatments between washings. The results? Garments that smelled like plum blossom, pine, or, according to one scandalous poem, the sigh of a courtesan and the memory of spring. You breathe in. One robe smells like roasted tea and sandalwood. Another reminds you of old books and river moss. The man offers you a tiny cloth square, instructing you to dab, not sniff. You obey, pressing it to your wrist. The scent is warm, sleepy, and slightly mischievous, like someone who's just told a joke in a library. You're enchanted. He finally looks up. One of them is missing, he says gravely. A robe scented with persimmon and burnt pine. It was left in the wash too long. The scent is compromised. You offer condolences, unsure of the etiquette. He points to a crumpled heap in the corner, its fabric limp, its scent muddled like a spilled memory. You approach cautiously, giving it a gentle sniff. It smells like wet paper and embarrassment. Historians still argue whether these scent rituals were a rebellion against sartorial regulations or simply the logical evolution of Edo-era aesthetics, he says, perhaps quoting a lecture he once gave to a particularly attentive laundry guild. You lift the garment and stretch it gently. A tiny stitched label at the collar reads something poetic. Whisper me clean. You can't help smiling. The man takes it from you and begins working a perfumed cloth into the inner seams, muttering something that sounds suspiciously like a love song. It can be saved, he says softly. He teaches you the technique. Mist, brush, fold, whisper. You follow, feeling strangely like you're tucking dreams into linen. Your final task is to help rehang the robe beside its scented siblings. You do so slowly, carefully aligning the shoulders and smoothing the hem. The man nods. Before you leave, he hands you a narrow vial, filled with a pale liquid. For your sleeves, he says, just a drop, when you need to remember who you are. You nod and pocket it gently. A soft breeze brushes past, catching the hems of the robes and lifting them into a small, fluttering bow. You walk away a little more fragrant and possibly more mysterious. By now, your hands carry the faint scent of plum blossom and starch. Your sleeves hang a little heavier, not with moisture, but with the weight of experience. You've folded noble robes, performed theatrical ringing, and whispered to perfume seams. And still, Edo has more to teach you. You find yourself on a quieter street now, cobbled with stone and lined with modest homes. The wash lines here sag with simpler garments, faded yukata, patched work robes, socks that have seen too many winters. There's no scent of perfume in the air, just fresh water, morning air, and a strange hush. A side gate swings open beside you, revealing a garden courtyard dappled in soft light. A woman in a robin's egg blue kimono gestures for you to enter with the barest flick of her wrist. You don't hesitate. At this point, you'd follow a laundry pin into the underworld. Inside, everything is quiet, calm, intimate. A single piece of linen, hand-dyed and cloud-white, lies stretched across a lacquered plank. Beside it, a thin copper kettle simmers over a charcoal brazier, sending up tiny tendrils of steam. The air smells faintly of lavender root and hot metal. She points to the cloth. It doesn't need washing, she says. It needs remembering. You sit beside her, unsure of the rules here. She hands you a bamboo fan and begins pouring ladlefuls of hot water over the linen in precise intervals. Steam rises and swirls, softening the fibers. Mainstream historical fact. In Edo, Japan, upper-class families often used steam to revive garments that had been folded too long or worn only briefly, especially delicate silk pieces. This process helped preserve color and shape without the risk of full washing, which could damage the weave. Fringe detail. Some silk caretakers believed that cloth held memory of the wearer, the moment, even of emotions experienced while wearing it. Steaming was viewed as a gentle way to coax the garment's spirit back into alignment. You begin to fan the linen gently, watching as the steam curls under your strokes. It's hypnotic. The cloth softens visibly, like it's exhaling. Historians still argue whether this ritual was about preserving fabric or status. She says, more to the cloth than to you. Steam doesn't clean, but it reminds. She dips a comb into camellia oil and drags it slowly along the cloth's edge, coaxing a delicate sheen. Like telling a story back to the garment, she murmurs, word by word. You nod, your own breath sinking with the rise of steam and the slow flick of your fan. You feel the heat on your cheeks, the faint tickle of vapor across your eyelids. The cloth is almost alive beneath your hands. You remember for a moment your own garments, the folds and wrinkles that hold the day's secrets, the things you've brushed against, the way your sleeve caught on that door frame, the way your hem absorbed the scent of jasmine in that early alley. You're jolted gently from your reverie by the woman handing you a folded square of linen. For your next memory, she says, you take it with both hands. It's light, but purposeful. The kind of thing someone might pass down. As you leave the courtyard, you realize how quiet the city has become behind you. Not silent, just softened, muted, like the colors of well-loved cloth. You tuck the square into your sash. Already, it feels like something you've had for years. The next turn of the path brings you to the edge of a district with more color than the others. Deep blues, saffron yellows, brilliant reds. Cloth hangs from windows like proud banners, some drying, others mid-process, fluttering like rumors in the breeze. The smell is unmistakable. Dye, earthy, sharp, with a faint metallic tang that sticks to the back of your throat. You sneeze. The air answers with the faint swish of a curtain and the creak of a wooden stool. A boy, not much older than 15, with a streak of indigo running down one cheek like war paint, waves you over. He sits in front of a steaming vat the size of a bathtub, prodding it gently with a bamboo rod. The liquid inside is so dark, it swallows light. You wrinkle it. You own it, he says, gesturing to a drying rack where a silk kimono flutters in disgrace, creased at the collar like a disgruntled eyebrow. You apologize reflexively, even though you haven't touched anything yet. He laughs and pats the plank beside him. You sit. Mainstream historical fact. Edo was a center of textile craftsmanship with entire neighborhoods devoted to dyeing, steaming, and shaping fabrics, particularly silks. Indigo, in particular, became both a practical and aesthetic choice, prized for its antibacterial properties and its resistance to insects and fading. Fringe detail. In some dye houses, workers were forbidden from speaking while handling silk. Any mistake made while talking was believed to imprint the fabric with bad luck. Whispered gossip, however, was permitted as long as the cloth was looking away. You watch as he stirs the vat. It's not just color, he says. It's a mood. You have to feel it before you dip. He hands you a cloth glove, nods toward a pale kimono waiting nearby. Steam first, to open it up. You obey, hovering the fabric over a smaller pot of boiling water, letting the heat relax the tight, nervous folds. It sighs like a stage actor between scenes. Then, with the solemnity of a tea ceremony, he helps you lower the garment into the dye. It sinks slowly, soaking in mood and memory. You ask about the apprentice who wore the streak of dye across his cheek. He grins. Everyone here gets marked, he says. The dye chooses where. As the kimono darkens, he tells you about the cloth's owner, a woman who sang lullabies to her laundry before bed. Said the fabric listened better in dreams. The dye deepens. You stir slowly, watching midnight bloom across silk. It's mesmerizing. Suddenly, disaster. You bump the vat with your knee, sending a splash of indigo flying. A single drop lands on the silk kimono drying in the corner, the one with the sullen crease. The boy gasps. You freeze. The room holds its breath. Then he exhales. Well, now it has a constellation. He grins. Let's just say it's custom. Historians still argue whether dyeing mistakes were repaired, concealed, or turned into signatures of the artisan. He says, now mimicking the nasal tone of an elderly professor. I prefer the happy accident school of thought. Together you lift the dyed kimono from the vat, rinse it in clear water and stretch it carefully on the frame to dry. It gleams in the light, deep blue, with whispers of shadow around the seams. It looks like dusk woven into thread. Before you go, the apprentice hands you a small cloth patch dyed in the same vat. For your sleeve, he says, in case it forgets where it's been. You nod, tucking it into your sash beside the linen square from the garden courtyard. Your collection grows. Stains, scents, scraps. All of them souvenirs of someone else's story. The breeze carries the smell of hot dye and old silk as you step back into the winding street. You have a wrinkle in your memory. But maybe, just maybe, you'll learn how to steam it out. The sky begins to smudge with the first brushstrokes of evening, lavender seeping into blue like ink across rice paper. You're retracing your steps along a stone footbridge when the wind suddenly shifts. Cooler now, carrying the scent of wet rope and the promise of weather. And then, with all the subtlety of a sneezing ox, the storm hits. Rain doesn't trickle in Edo. It arrives in sheets, bouncing off tile and rattling through bamboo like gossip. You scramble under the nearest overhang, an abandoned tea stand, and look back just in time to see your wash pail tumbling from your hands and rolling into the street like it's late for an appointment. You make a valiant leap after it, but your sleeve, traitor that it is, snags on a loose nail. The fabric rips with a soft shukt, and you nearly face-plant into a puddle the size of Mount Fuji's reflection. When you finally retrieve the pail, dented, slightly offended, you look up and realize you're no longer on familiar streets. This part of Edo is quieter, with narrow alleys and shuttered windows. The rain turns each roof into a drum, and the gutters run like narrow rivers. You wander, drenched and carrying your sad little pail, until a low voice calls out, "Oi, you dropping laundry or making soup?" A figure waves from the edge of a covered portico, a wiry man in a cone-shaped hat and an oil paper coat. He stands next to a massive, dripping basket of clothes, a lantern hanging nearby. The glow casts long, ghostly shadows. You edge closer. He peers at you through the rain. "You're late," he says, as though this has been scheduled. Mainstream historical fact. Sudden storms were a frequent challenge in Edo, leading to makeshift drying structures and specialized baskets designed to protect laundry mid-transport. Families often had backup drying spaces, such as shared attic racks or bamboo frames under awnings. Fringe detail. There were occasional reports of laundry being struck by lightning while drying on rooftops, an event believed by some to indicate divine approval and by others to be a very inconvenient blessing. You duck under the awning. The man gestures to the soaked basket. "Well, since you're already damp, might as well help." You wring out a robe together, using a large roller like a noodle press. Water gushes out in streams. "Storm's got a name," he mutters. "They call her Mistress Wrinkle." You glance at the sky. She's clearly in a mood. The two of you begin laying out whatever you can salvage. The garments are heavy with rain, sagging like sad jellyfish. You use your body weight to press one flat. He nods approvingly. Historians still argue whether the rainproofing techniques used in Edo laundry transport were born from necessity or out of a kind of slow genius, he says without looking up. Me? I think we just got tired of wet underwear. A bolt of lightning briefly illuminates the street. You freeze. In that flash, you see something strange. A child's kimono hung on the frame across from you, embroidered with cats playing flutes. It sways eerily in the wind. You point. "That one yours?" He glances over. "Belonged to my sister," he says. "She swore it danced during storms. Said it kept the house safe." A gust sends the kimono flapping wildly. You both watch it for a moment, the silence heavier than before. He sighs. Laundry's like people. Most of it's just wet potential until someone bothers to care for it. You help him move the last of the garments under cover. He gives you a towel, coarse, well used, and a smile so faint it might be a trick of the lantern light. Keep your sleeves dry, he says, adjusting his hat. You're going to need them. And with that, he disappears into the rain. You tuck the towel into your sash, your collection now including linen for memory, indigo for luck, and damp terry cloth for wisdom, apparently. The storm fades. Raindrops slow. The wind settles into a hush. You step back onto the footbridge. The wood slick beneath your feet. And look up. Above, the rooftops glisten like lacquered dreams. And somewhere, in a distant alley, someone's sock finally lets go of the line. The rain has given everything a luminous sheen. The stones under your feet glisten, each puddle reflecting bits of sky and lanterns, and even the laundry lines seem to hang heavier, like they've had a long day and need a moment. You find yourself wandering into a narrow back street where the houses huddle close, their wooden eaves almost touching. It's quieter here, more domestic. Laundry lines crisscross overhead like spiderwebs, each one weighted with garments in various stages of surrender to gravity. There's movement near one line. Two women, perhaps sisters, are mid-argument over a pair of undergarments flapping indignantly in the breeze. "It's mine," the shorter one insists, tugging on one leg. "Then why does it smell like my soap?" The taller one counters, equally committed. You freeze, mid-step, unsure of the etiquette for mid-century underwear disputes. The shorter one turns to you and says, "You there? Neutral party. Who owns this?" You step forward, examine the garment like a connoisseur inspecting a vintage wine, and then wisely hold up both hands in surrender. "It belongs to whoever can fold it best," you say, instantly regretting your involvement. They accept the challenge with all the gravity of a tea duel. As the folding duel begins, you drift past into the next yard, where a row of underlayers, hadajuban, hangs like whispers. Light, thin, almost see-through, they flutter with an elegance outer robes could only dream of. Mainstream historical fact, in Edo period Japan, the undergarments, especially the hadajuban and suzuyoke, were essential to both hygiene and etiquette. These base layers absorbed sweat, protected the expensive kimono from body oils, and were often washed far more frequently than the visible layers. Fringe detail. There was an unspoken hierarchy to drying positions. Higher clotheslines indicated cleaner garments or higher status, while lower lines were often reserved for underlayers or more intimate items. A misplacement could lead to social commentary or duels over drawers. You help an elderly woman lift her drying rack to a higher notch. She thanks you and mutters something about the youth hanging their drawers like they're proud of them. A little boy runs by, holding a sleeve like a kite. Mom says never talk about underlayers in mixed company. He shouts gleefully. The neighborhood seems to revolve around laundry the way others might revolve around food or gossip. Drying patterns, fabric weight, the exact position of a waistband, all of it means something. You come to a corner where a small shrine has been built around a clothespin, nailed into a post. Someone's left offerings: rice, an orange, and a tiny folded sock. A placard beside it reads, "To the forgotten undergarment. May it never chafe nor fade." You leave a tiny thread from your sash as tribute. Historians still argue whether undergarments were truly taboo or merely unspoken markers of intimacy. A passing tailor says to no one in particular. But we all know the real secrets were stitched beneath the obi. You nod thoughtfully. Even now, you feel the slight itch of your own underlayer drying against your skin. It's not discomfort, it's memory. A reminder of all the folds you've passed through today. Back near the folding duel, a small crowd has gathered. One of the sisters finishes her fold with a flourish, flipping the waistband over with such precision it gets a spontaneous round of applause. The other sighs, bows dramatically, and hands over the disputed garment. Peace, in its own odd way, is restored. You move on, your own sleeves brushing against the damp garments as you pass. Each one seems to acknowledge you with a soft, silent nod. And for just a moment, the wind catches your hem and lifts it, just slightly, as if the laundry lines themselves are giving you a standing ovation. Evening has set in properly now. The lanterns glow warmer, and the city exhales. You can feel it in the soft clink of chopsticks from open windows, the hush of sandals across damp stone, and the gentle creak of laundry lines easing their burdens for the night. You're ambling along a dim lane when you hear a metallic clang, followed by a cheerful, off-key whistle. A man rounds the corner, spinning a pole tipped with a lantern in one hand and carrying a wooden clipboard in the other. He's dressed in a faded guard's uniform and has the unmistakable energy of someone who talks to his laundry. "Evening," he calls out. "You look like someone who's seen some sleeves today." You nod. He beckons you closer. "I'm the night watchman," he says proudly. "Also unofficial mayor of the city's cleanest secrets." He taps the clipboard with theatrical flair. You peer over his shoulder and see laundry notes, detailed ones, entire paragraphs describing drying techniques, fold quality, even notes like "Mrs. Hoshino's pillowcases still smell like river mud." "I patrol the night for noise, mischief, and folding crimes," he says. "Come, you're deputized now." And just like that, you're following him on his route. The city looks different through his eyes, more alive, more deeply wrinkled. Mainstream historical fact: night watchmen, Yoriki and Doshin, in Edo, were responsible not only for public safety but also for community order, including reporting fires, enforcing curfews, and occasionally documenting domestic practices, including waste, water use, and yes, laundry practices that violated neighborhood harmony. Fringe detail: some watchmen were known to keep informal cleanliness ledgers, quietly ranking households by the appearance and aroma of their washing. These lists were never official, but they were passed around like secret scrolls of judgment. Historians still argue whether these ledgers were meant as a joke or a kind of passive community enforcement, he says, adjusting his lantern. I say both. Also, the Matsumoto family folds their underobi inside out. Criminal. You pass a rack of drying baby garments and he sighs. The Kubo twins, born during a thunderstorm. The only time I've ever seen a sock roll uphill. You walk in companionable silence, pausing now and then to reposition a rogue drying line or rehang a fallen sleeve. He checks them all carefully, making soft noises of approval or mild offense. Here, he says suddenly, gesturing to a rooftop. This is the city's cleanest kimono. Look at that pleat. I'd salute it if my shoulder didn't click. The kimono sways gently in the wind, like it's bowing back. Further down the road, you spot a basket left unattended on a stoop. The watchman narrows his eyes. Potential foul play, he mutters, then lifts the corner of the top cloth. A cat bursts out. You both scream. The cat lands with grace, glares at you, and disappears into the alley. The watchman coughs. That was a decoy. You move on, heart still thumping. The watchman returns to whistling, as if cats in laundry baskets are a routine hazard. You arrive at his final stop, a bamboo rack shaped like a ladder perched atop a low rooftop. He gestures for you to climb. You hesitate, but curiosity wins. From the rooftop, you see the city spread beneath you. Lanterns flickering like low stars, lines of fabric crisscrossing like constellations. Every garment down there's got a story, he says quietly. A secret, a stain someone tried to forget. You stand there a while, listening to the wind whisper through the drying sleeves, the city holding its breath beneath them. He hands you a blank page from his clipboard. For your notes, he says, or your secrets, whichever you think is heavier. You fold it carefully and tuck it away. Keep walking, he says. The night's got more to say. And with that, he disappears down the ladder, lantern swinging like a metronome in a lullaby. With your paper secret tucked into your sash and the rooftop wind still clinging to your sleeves, you descend into a quieter part of the city. A warren of narrow lanes, stitched together by clotheslines and old songs. A bathhouse lantern flickers ahead, its painted steam cloud signs swaying gently. You hadn't realized how much your feet hurt until you saw that glow. Inside the bathhouse is a foggy haven of tile and wood. The air is warm, wet, and smells of hinoki and citrus peel. You're handed a folded towel by a young attendant who doesn't speak, just nods toward the inner room. You strip your outer layers carefully, reverently, like they've earned a nap, and lower yourself into the water. The heat rushes up your spine. Your muscles sigh audibly. Your thoughts puddle around your ankles. A moment later, someone slides into the water beside you. She's older, hair coiled into a tidy bun, eyes sharp as a tailor's needle. There's a scar on her wrist, partially hidden by an ink blue tattoo, a folding fan. She says nothing for a while. Then, you fold like a left-handed ghost. You look over. She grins. I'm a washer, she says. Or was. Now I mostly soak. You offer a soft laugh, more steam than sound. I stole lie, she says casually, as though discussing the weather. You blink. Back in my prime, from a rival laundress, she used crushed persimmon and chicken ash. Awful technique. But people loved her. She leans back, shoulders bobbing with the water. So, I borrowed her life formula, perfected it, didn't give it back. Mainstream historical fact. Lye, traditionally made from wood ash, was a key component in stronger soaps during the Edo period, but it was considered volatile and had to be used carefully. Recipes for lye soaps were closely guarded and often passed down through guilds or families. Fringe detail. There are recorded disputes where rival washerwomen allegedly sabotaged each other's soap batches, diluted starch, or even swapped garments mid-dry. Laundry, it turns out, had its own quiet wars. Historians still argue whether the soap guilds kept actual recipe scrolls or just passed everything down verbally, she says, now trailing a hand through the water. I say, if it's not written, it can't be stolen. Unless you're me. You ask her if she regrets it. She shrugs. Only when the water's too hot. The two of you soak in companionable silence. Every so often she splashes her fingers lightly, absent-mindedly shaping wavelets in the water as if folding the surface. Then she looks at you again. You're collecting pieces, she says. You hesitate, then nod. Keep them clean, she says. But don't starch out the creases too much. That's where the stories hide. She rises from the bath, robes herself in a cotton yukata printed with tea leaves, and nods once before disappearing behind the curtain. You stay a little longer, letting the steam do its soft magic. Eventually, you gather your belongings and step outside into the cool night. Your skin is warm, your thoughts looser, your sleeves lighter. In your pocket, you find something folded and dry. The washerwoman left you a tiny soap wrapper. One corner is embroidered in silk thread with a kanji you don't recognize. You hold it up to the moonlight. Maybe it means clean. Or maybe thief. Or maybe, just maybe, friend. You wander eastward now, guided only by the pulse of footsteps, softened by gravel and the occasional flicker of candlelight through shoji screens. The bathhouse heat still lingers in your bones, a kind of borrowed comfort. But the air grows colder, thinner, The lanterns sparser. The city fades into stillness until you arrive at a place that doesn't appear on any map. It's a wide, open yard hemmed by old pines and silent walls. No sign, no gate, just lines upon lines of drying garments fluttering softly under the moon. At first, it seems like any other communal drying space. But as you step in, the air thickens. The clothes here are different, older, faded, yellowed with age, and silent. Too silent. You swear you hear whispering, but it vanishes when you focus. You reach out to touch a sleeve. It's cold. Then you see the first one. A child's kimono with a small rip along the shoulder seam, mended with thread that's come loose. You recognize the pattern from earlier. Dancing cats with tiny instruments, the watchman's sisters. You freeze. One row over, a man's jacket stained at the collar, the buttons dulled by time. On the hem, a single embroidered chrysanthemum. You saw that same robe in a steamy courtyard before the storm. And a scarf, its ends fraying, dyed in deep indigo with a speck of ink, shaped like a constellation. The dye apprentice's happy accident. You're not in a laundry yard, you're in a memory yard. Mainstream historical fact. In some parts of Edo, it was customary to hang garments of the recently deceased for one final airing, a symbolic act of cleansing and transition. These clothes were often donated afterward or repurposed, depending on family belief and social standing. Fringe detail. Superstition held that if you dreamed of laundry flapping without wind, it meant a spirit was near, still waiting for something to be folded, metaphorically or otherwise. You walk slowly between the lines. Each garment you pass seems to carry a scent, a whisper, a weight. Some are perfectly preserved, others are coming apart at the seams, threads dangling like spiderwebs waiting for meaning. There's a robe hung higher than the others, black, with a delicate silver trim. The kind of robe worn to funerals. Its sleeves hang limp, like they've stopped reaching, and pinned to the chest, a folded note. You reach up. The fabric is dry, light. The note rustles. You unfold it. Just a name. Ink smudged, but still there. The name means nothing to you, but your chest aches anyway. Historians still argue whether these ghost garments were a ritual, a practical solution to mourning, or simply a way to grieve in silence, says a voice. Not spoken aloud, but remembered from somewhere deeper. You look around. No one's here. But you're not alone. You take out your own folded scraps, the indigo patch, the linen square, the towel, the soap wrapper. Each one a piece of a story, each one earned. You place them gently on a low stone at the center of the yard. And for reasons you don't fully understand, you bow. The clothes around you shift slightly in the breeze. One sleeve lifts, then another. You bow again. And then you leave the yard without looking back. Some things want to be remembered only in passing. The sky has turned navy now, ink dark and stippled with stars. The streets are almost empty. Edo sleeps in layers, some homes shuttered tight, others glowing faintly like lanterns exhaling dreams. You follow a now familiar path down to the riverside where it all began. The laundry stones are still there, cool to the touch. A basin rests under the same awning, and waiting beside it, sleeves folded and arms crossed, is the washerwoman. She doesn't speak right away, just gestures to the cloth bundle beside her, neatly arranged with the precision of a tea ceremony. You recognize the pieces, some of your own, some borrowed along the way. It's time you learn the final fold, she says. You kneel beside her and she opens the bundle. One by one, she lifts each garment, smoothing out creases, aligning seams. Then, with hands as calm as tide water, she folds. Inward, upward, diagonal. Press. Again. Her movements are hypnotic. Mainstream historical fact. The art of folding kimono, tattoo, was and still is a practiced tradition. Precise folds protected the shape and silk, reduced wrinkles, and allowed for easy stacking. Many families had designated folding days. The folds themselves were said to preserve the energy and memory of the wearer. Fringe detail. In some villages, garments were folded into sleeping shapes, symbolically tucking the cloth to rest. It was believed that mishandled folds could confuse the spirit of the robe, leading to bad dreams or wayward sleeves. You try folding one of your own pieces. She watches silently. You're close. Too much pressure on the corner. A soft sigh escapes her. You fold with caution, she says. Try folding with care. You attempt again, this time listening to the cloth. It's a strange thing to say, but the rhythm feels right. The fabric gives, the fold settles. She nods. Together, you fold each garment, including the indigo square, the linen cloth, even the now dry towel. Each one gets its own breath of attention. Your hands remember what your mind forgets when everything is folded. She layers them into the bundle, ties the cord, and places it in your lap. You've earned this, she says. Not the clothes, the quiet. You look down at the bundle. It's heavier than it should be. Historians still argue whether laundry was a menial task or a spiritual one, she murmurs. But I say it's both. You scrub the day away. You fold the self into place. You both sit there for a while. A boat drifts downriver in silence. Somewhere, a bell chimes the hour. A frog croaks near the bank, unimpressed. The washerwoman rises, brushes off her sleeves, and begins to gather her tools. Before she leaves, she turns to you. Don't wait for stains to become stories, she says. And then she's gone. You sit there in the quiet, bundle in lap, the final fold pressed warm against your knees. The river runs beside you, carrying secrets, rinsing memory. You remain seated by the river long after the washerwoman disappears into the fog of the city, bundle nestled beside you like a sleeping cat. The current moves, slow and silver in the moonlight, as if it too is reluctant to let go of the night. You unwrap the bundle once more, not to unfold, but simply to touch. Each piece a chapter. The indigo patch from the apprentice who painted with dye. The soap wrapper from the thief who soaked away her sins. The linen square steamed into clarity. The towel from a watchman who documented the city's dirtiest truths. And your own robe, now crisp, clean, and whispering with stories. You feel the wind pick up gently, fluttering the edges of the garments. A single thread lifts from the hem of your sleeve. You pinch it carefully. Perhaps it's meant to be pulled. Mainstream historical fact. Fabric in Edo wasn't just utility. It was a statement of place, duty, and identity. Even the humble cotton kimono told others who you were and where you belonged. The folds didn't just hide wrinkles, they told time. Fringe detail. Some believed that when a person left this world, the last garment they folded in life would accompany them into the next, its creases guiding them through the unfamiliar. You smooth the thread back into place and sigh, soft and slow. Your eyes wander to a drying line strung between two cypress trees nearby. Just one robe hangs there, a simple, faded thing, familiar. It's yours. You rise slowly, limbs reluctant to stir, and approach. The robe sways gently, sleeves open like arms welcoming you home. You step toward it, reach, and carefully, deliberately, you take it down. You fold it slowly, lovingly, the way you were taught. Shoulder to hem, sleeve to heart. Press, press, rest. You tuck it beneath your arm. Historians still argue whether we wear the past, you think, or whether the past wears us. The city is asleep now. No footsteps, no steam, only the rustle of memory through cloth. You walk the path back through alleys that remember you, past the sign that once read, "Cleanliness is a prayer in motion," now barely legible in the dark. Past the noodle shop where socks still hang. Past the shrine with its tiny sock offering. And finally, back to where your journey began. The alley, the straw mat, the first scent of rice bran and regret. You lie down gently, bundle beside you. The air is cool again, familiar. You close your eyes. And so, dear dreamer, as you rest beneath the lantern glow of memory and moon, let your breath settle into slower rhythms. Let the images of sleeves and steam, of silent folds and fragrant cloth, soften at the edges like old cotton in warm water. You've wandered through a world shaped by patience, where even stains are part of the story, and every wrinkle holds a whisper. The work was never just about washing. It was about noticing, sensing, listening to what a garment remembers when no one else does. Tonight, there are no sharp corners left, only the quiet creak of wood, the rustle of wind against bamboo, the familiar weight of your own robe tucked gently beneath your chin. Let your mind loosen now, like a sash at the end of day. Let thoughts slip from their hangers. Let worries drip dry. You are washed, rinsed, and folded. You are part of the story now. The river hums in the distance, the sleeves are still, and so are you. End of script. Sweet dreams.